Happy New Year, Happy New Year. We got 30 minutes lined up for today. The way that these work, if you're newer here, you can either raise your hand, um, and I call on you and you can ask me a question directly, or you can just type it in the chat and I'll read it out and go from there. So if anybody's got a question, they want to get started, the floor is yours. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Quiet day today. All right. Um,
Hey Ryan,
what's
I'll
up,
be
man?
happy to. I'll jump in here.
Please.
Thanks for thanks for providing the time. I wanted to ask the bottleneck with my agency right now is that I think the biggest one is that I'm still sending content to my clients. It all still runs through me, and I'm the one sending it out to them because I
Yeah.
feel with a lot of the content we send out, it requires some form of explanation. I like to add a little bit in there that I haven't really trained a member on how to do yet. But I don't even know if that step is necessary. I just wanted to get your view on when you step out of that role and you're just having your content strategist send the content directly, or you're having them pass it off to somebody who sends it directly. What does that process look like for you? And forgive me if it's in the training. I just
No, no,
wanted to
it's
get
fine.
your view on it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I don't review content. I don't think I've ever reviewed content at that level, mainly because it's just not worth your time to do. Like there's editors out there. If like, okay, let me rephrase that. If you're the content that you're reviewing, are you having to make a lot of edits on it? Is it okay or no, not really?
It's good, and I hardly make any edits on it. I barely read it anymore. I just like to send a little thing to the clients with them, making sure everybody's happy and kind of keep the story going, keep
Yes.
everything. Yeah,
So
that's
so
it.
why can't talking about your team, like who's responsible for content creation, ideation, etc.
Yeah, so my brother Jake is our content strategist, and he's doing a lot. He manages a couple of people, but he's doing a lot with AI and doing human edits on it, of course. But he's really taking care of everything, and then he sends it to me, and I send it to the client. And I just haven't taken that step of having him do that because it's not really a role that I've ever imagined him in a way. But I think it might be time.
Maybe because you have a personal relationship with him, you have a kind of like preconceived bias with it. But like, dude, let people do it. Let him fail. If he fails, you correct him. And I mean, that's the only way you're going to get out of it. But like, that's just really not a good use of your time. Even the communication element of it, you can write him an email template and just be like, dude, just copy and paste this, like stay within the lines. Um, but yeah, I would get that off your plate. You should
Okay.
have no involvement with it, especially if like overall the content is good and you don't have any qualms with it, then and the clients don't have any issues with it, then stop immediately.
Okay, great. And on that note, when you guys send content to clients, do you add anything in there, or are you just saying, here's the content for approval? Once it's approved,
Yep.
we'll publish it in this amount of time and then done.
Yep. That's it.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah. What is
Yeah,
it?
that
The simple solution is always the solution. Is that I don't know if that's exactly how it goes, but like, yeah, I mean, we do it inside of ClickUp where we'll kind of send them a notification saying, here's, 3, 5 pages for you to review. If you don't have any notes, then we're going to be publishing this and we give them a date, you know. So it gives them a timeline to review. If not, then we just publish it, you know, without them reviewing it.
okay, great. And last question on that. When you give them a timeline, is it generally something around like if we don't hear something in 4 days, 5 days or something, it gets published, or do you guys have a timeline there?
I think it's 10 days. I think because
Okay.
we send it to them in batch. We don't send them like, because some of our clients are doing like 6 pages a month. So we don't want to send them like twice a week with with content to review. So we'll just batch it and be like, here's, the content for the month. You have the first next 10 days to review it and give us any notes. If not, we're going to publish it. And if they say no, then we won't publish it, obviously. But for the most part, like our clients don't care. They understand that, like, one, after they've gone through it one time, they trust us, and two, like it's going to impede their campaign if they don't let us publish it. These are all things, like these are notes to take for you to talk about during the onboarding process.
All right, perfect. Well, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, put it into your onboarding information that when you go through and you have your onboarding call, just like let them know, you know.
Got it. Awesome.
Cool. Gabe has a question in the chat. He says, I was wondering if it is possible to get a GMB where the address is not shown to rank. I'm not sure if I understand that question, Gabe. I don't know if you're here, Gabe, if you just want to kind of voice up and clarify that
Yeah,
up.
sure. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks. So basically, it's a company. We have separate locations that, but we actually don't serve clients out of there. So we have the headquarters that we show the location, but we want to serve another area that just is far from the headquarters. It's really
Yeah.
a different state. And so when we set up the GMB, we used one of the salesmen and we used their house basically and said, okay, we don't want to show the address. And so I guess, I'm wondering, can we get that to rank? And then if so, how do we, what do we?
How far away is it, would you say, from like where it's verified to where you want to try and rank it?
So the headquarters and this location they're probably 30 miles apart, but it's a different state. So I'm in the Philadelphia area. So we basically have New Jersey. Jersey people are searching for Jersey company, even though it's not that far.
Okay. What's the industry or vertical?
It is basement waterproofing, so home
Okay.
improvement.
Okay. I mean, I would just say no. Like that's probably like 30 miles is a pretty big range to try and rank with. It depends on like the population, it depends on competitors, but for the most part, you're gonna want to try and find something closer to where you actually want to rank it for. 30 miles is a pretty long way to go to rank.
So you figure it's the second location has got to have the address shown on the GMB if we want
It's
to.
not so much that it has to have it shown, but it's got to be within that service area, right? It's got to be within a certain range, like closer to the area that you want to rank.
Well, okay, let me restate that a little bit. So
Yeah.
the second GMB that we have is in the area.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but we don't show the address because it's the guy's
Mhm.
house. And
Yeah,
so,
okay, got it.
you
That's
know,
fine then. Because so businesses like that where the client doesn't come into the location,
yeah.
it's a service area business, you don't have to show the location, you
So
know.
for citations, would you do separate citations for that
Yeah.
location stuff? And then would you put the address in the citations or not put the address in the citations?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is why like one, Google doesn't want you to do that. They don't want you to use a home address. Like if you're not actually doing business out of that location, and I'll give you an example. When I got my pool built, the guy that I hired was because I went over to his house because he invited me to the like I thought it was his office and I went to his house. I was first of all, I was like, I don't want to go to this guy's fucking house. Like this is a little bit weird. But like if you're not comfortable, like, but that being said, Google will allow it because a lot of home services businesses are just like guys, they're contractors that are operating out of their home. So that's fine. But in that instance, most of those people are comfortable sharing the address because that's their actual business address. In this instance, right, you're taking the SEO's approach, which I understand, which is saying we just want to get another location verified so we can rank, but it doesn't sound like you really want to do business out of that location because it's just an employee's home address, correct?
Correct.
So in that instance, you're kind of stuck because you like yes, you can rank without the address being shown in GBP, right? And you can also rank a service area business versus service location business, right? Meaning again, home services businesses, for the most part, you don't go to that like a landscaper. You're not showing up to their office and being like, hey, I want landscaping, right? You're searching based on an area that they would service. So that falls into that category. But from like the optimization citation point of view of it, I mean, you can try ranking it without building citations. Citations, I don't think are necessarily the most important thing, but I would say they're part of the process. But you can try ranking it without the citations and just go reviews, page on the website, building links to it, and see how that goes. But you're not going to be able to build citations without an address tied to that specific GBP's location.
Got it.
Yeah. So, you know, it's kind of what Google wants. Like they don't like you doing what you're doing, which is essentially, I don't want, it's not gaming the system, but it's essentially it's you're trying to take up real estate kind of the backdoor way, I guess would be the way to put it. You know, I don't have an issue with it. I don't have any problem with it at all. And Google's going to allow you to do it. Like if it was a law firm, they probably wouldn't allow you to do it. Or if it was like obviously like a dentist office, they're not going to allow you to do it because for the most part, those people have to come into that, especially a dentist, they have to come into that location to be serviced. So you can't hide the address. You can't kind of just try and get a location verified. It wouldn't make sense. And for attorneys, it's just so competitive, it's probably not going to work. But in the home services business, you can get it verified, but like, can you get it optimized is kind of another question. And I don't
Got
have experience doing that personally. I always recommend to my clients just pay for an office. You know, like it's not that much. And especially if you've got one location that's doing well, you've got a really good business case to say this location is driving XYZ phone calls and XYZ clients per month. I've done the research and I found some commercial space that's going to cost you, I don't know, $300 a month. We can actually get it verified and like drop a pin there. And for them, it should like you just have to make the business case for it. And that's a lot easier if you've got the data from one that's performing, because what you also don't want to happen is to kind of like get the client's hopes up or make promises to them and then get in a situation a couple months from now where they've been paying you for that location as well. And you're like, well, it's not a real location, so there's nothing I can do, you know?
yeah, it's not working. I gotcha. Okay. And is there any, so with the consistency of the citations, is there any concern when you have two locations like that that Google's saying, okay, where's this business actually located, or it doesn't, that's not a thing. You just do the citations for the other location.
Well, if you have two site locate, like the citations would be tied to the address, right? As part of like the NAP, right?
Right.
So if you have two locations for the same business or 3 or 10 or whatever that is, you can, each of those locations should have their own set of citations done for it because that set of citations is supporting that specific location, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And in the competitive field with the like with the law firms, how great of a distance are you able to get those where they're really in the
Yeah.
top three?
Depending on the locate depending on location. Like I'm in Miami, you're not getting past 1 mile in Miami. There's just way too much competition. And the population is so dense here too, right? Same thing with like LA, Chicago, like any major city, you're looking at like a 1 mile radius. And I know like you might see information online or through Facebook ads of like the whole grid ranking, like it's bullshit. Now, if you're in Boise, Idaho, I might be able to get you like a 10-15 mile radius if you're just there's just a bunch of cows around you, you know. So it really just it depends on the market and the location. Um, and you can just do some research to understand like how much competition is in a given area by just going to maps and typing in the keyword. You know what I mean? So that's also why like these locations, even in in the same city, having multiple offices in the same city like Miami is valuable because Miami is a very large city. If you've ever been to Miami, like Miami proper extends from, you know, Coral Gables, which is south, all the way up to North Miami, which is like on the border of Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale. Like, and within that, there's a million different like what you can only call them like cities, right? That it's very different. I grew up in Massachusetts where there's towns, right? And like the city of Boston is like actually tiny, and then there's a bunch of towns around it, right? So like it's important to have a little bit of context for market when you're doing this as well. But like a city like Miami, I have a DUI client here. I'm like, yo, you should have an office in Coral Gables. You should have an office in Brickell. You should have an office on Miami Beach because that technically is all Miami, but people are hyper localizing that search. And they're also Google's heavily dependent on where that search is coming from when ranking. So if you're in Miami Beach searching for Miami DUI attorneys, it's going to trigger Miami Beach results because that's what the proximity is from. So in high population density areas, where that search is coming from is going to dictate what the rankings look like. So the more locations that you have in certain verticals in certain cities, the better that you're going to be. Now, of course, there's also the cost analysis of that. How much does an office cost in these locations? And two, how, can you get enough reviews to actually perform? If you like, it's great to be like, yeah, I'm going to open up 10 locations in Miami, but if you're only signing 5 clients a month, you're not going to have enough review flow to actually rank those profiles too. So this is where you come in, right? This is where all of us come in terms of being consultants um, and experts in this area to guide and consult the client the right way. Because I just had somebody the other day, we onboarded them, and I was talking about I was talking about like the importance of having multiple locations. They went on and got 4 offices. I was like, yo, like hold like like you don't have enough reviews to support all these office locations. It's cool to have them, but like they're kind of just going to sit on the shelf for a while until we can pick up case flow or figure out some other way to get reviews to these, because in some verticals you need hundreds or thousands of reviews to really punch up in the rankings.
Gotcha.
Yep. Alex, 1 second. I'm going to answer this question here from Taylor. Then I'll call on you. So Taylor asked, any advice for successfully managing onboarding contractors for the first time? I have a coordinator VA level person and a strategist person. The goal is to free up my time to take on more clients to, of course, drive more revenue. Great question, Taylor. So I like to use what's called a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding and training framework for all new employees. Very simple. You can easily, this is like ChatGPT is great for stuff like this too. Just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I am onboarding a new person. Tell ChatGPT exactly what they're doing. You can also ask ChatGPT for a list of things that role should be doing. But it's, if you feed it to it too, then just tell it exactly what this person is doing. Say, I want to set up a 30, 60, 90-day onboarding and training plan for this person to make sure, that they can integrate into my business and be a productive part of our ecosystem. And then at the 30, 60, 90 notes at the end of each of those days, so at the end of 30 days, the 60 days, the 90 days, where do you want that person to be? Where do you expect them to be? And then how are you going to help them get to that point? So using that framework, Taylor, it really helps you as the leader to break that down and feed them the right information, the right training. An example is we just brought on our first ever project manager. A lot of you guys know I've never really used project managers before. I put it more on the strategist to manage projects. But since we're pitching and signing a lot of Facebook ads clients, it's something that we haven't done. And there's a lot of moving pieces there in terms of like videos and editing and blah, 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 all this different stuff. So I brought on a project manager, and her 30, 60, 90-day plan, like the first 30 days was purely just like understand what we do here. Right? So you show up to 2 team calls a week. You have an additional call with me and Caesar. We review the clients that we have. We go through the scope of works that you have. And then I obviously put them through some of the stuff in the blueprint training to give them kind of like training context. So the end of the first 30 days is purely just like context, right? And then the end of 60 days is for her to take on the new clients that come in and, one, go through the onboarding process with them, two, build a project plan for them, and three, on the team calls, present what the team needs to know about these clients. And then at the end of 90 days, we're going to start integrating more projects onto her stuff. So that's how we're doing. And there's obviously a lot more stuff that goes into that, but it's just a framework that's worked for us, Taylor. It's just having some sort of organization, because onboarding people is really hard. If you don't give them the right infrastructure, they're ultimately going to fail. And you're probably, I'm not saying you, but like we end up blaming the person. Employees are our responsibility. Contractors are our responsibility. Their success is tied directly to you as a leader, not necessarily who they are in terms of their skill set. So again, ChatGPT is great for a lot of stuff like this to speed this up, but it's good to just get in as a leader to be planning and prepping for new people, because there's a lot that goes on. A lot of us are so close to this business and we know so much. Sometimes we forget how hard it is to join an organization when everyone else is sprinting and try and catch up. So that's what I recommend. Alex, go for it, man.
Hey, so I'm a little background. I'm tackling the medical spa niche. A lot of my clients are single injectors. So, once I'm gaining traction, getting these leads, they're struggling with the capturing an appointment setting, right? Because they don't have a front desk or single injectors. Um, have you had anyone, because I know you guys probably don't play in the AI voice, AI text, call setting, or appointment setting. Have you had anyone that had success with this? I'm kind of nervous with tackling that. Like I'm not worried on my end, but having them, the single injectors, deal with this and kind of with that kind of technology and offering it.
Yeah, I mean that would be something that I would say that you're probably gonna have to build and implement for them.
Right.
Um,
No, no, for sure. I was gonna do that. I'll set
okay.
that up for them and then just kind of get that going with them. I didn't know, with the no code stuff, it's pretty easy to get that in. I didn't know if there was any you had experience with it.
I personally don't. We personally don't like the clients that we target when we're working with that we want to work with. Like it's like a part of my discovery call process. I talk to them just as much about their intake process as which is like the sales
Right.
process is similar to what you're talking about, as I do about their marketing stuff. Because as you're finding out, a lot of your success is tied to their ability to do sales,
Yeah.
even at a very basic level, like in terms of managing leads, organization, like LTV upsells, cross stuff like that, which, I've talked about this before, like in verticals like this, a lot of these people come to us because they think that their biggest problem is leads. And then you get in there and you're like, no, you're not ready for 100 phone calls a month.
Right.
Like half your phone calls are not getting answered, or like
And
I
that's my
listened to a
biggest
couple of phone
issue.
calls. Yeah. Or like the phone calls you are listening to, like you're terrible at. Boy, that's sales, dude. Like awful.
Well, and I mean, that with the medical spa, that those things sell itself, right? Like,
Yeah.
luckily, I play the part with my wife owns a medical spa, so I think I'm just gonna kind of use that as an experiment with the
Mhm.
voice AI, because like she's that single injector, but crossed 7 figures as a single injector and just couldn't answer phones and could have more appointments. So it's like those leads are there. If I can set them and it sets for themselves, they can just inject on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you have access to that like level of detail in the business, man, that's gonna be your best selling tool and also your best, like even more than that too, like your best service building optimization plan and process. Because what's taken us the longest part about really trying to get into the legal space was that, like, which a lot of you are going through or have gone through or will go through, which is like getting experience in the vertical. And
Yeah.
it's not about just signing a couple clients, because you don't necessarily have that level of access, and these problems unfold over time. And by the time you learn it, that client's probably gone and you're like, okay, well, now I'll build on this. So like, so much of an agency is just building on past experience. But if you have the ability, like if I had access to a law firm to
Yeah.
do this stuff 2 years ago when we first got into this, our growth would have been dramatically accelerated, because I would have been able to build our service much faster. So, if you have the ability to do that, man, that is a tremendous asset to you to be able to not
That's
just,
how I started in that medical spa. Like but doing all this, I started that year before with just tackling them. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to tackle with hers, and if it fails, it fails, and I'll get a beating from her.
Tim just asked, he said, what's a single injector?
Just her in the business. Like it's just like, a freelancer agency. Like she owns the business. She sets the appointment. She doesn't have a front desk. It's literally just, it's like a hairdresser owning a suite. That you call the hairdresser, you make the appointment, you go to them, they pay, you pay them, and that's it. That's what a single injector
I
is.
actually thought I thought it was like a single injecting procedure, like Botox, like one-time Botox, not like a.
No, no. So they do like she does everything, like they do all the treatments, they do all the customer. So it's literally just them in the business, but that person can do seven fucking oops, sorry, my language,
No.
7 figures.
Yep.
So like there's a real business even just in a single injector. So, and I don't turn them away, but I'm getting a lot more of them that are coming in, and
Yeah.
it's a steady stream of that's the problem is their time.
Yeah.
Alex, does she go to their house or does she just have the prescription mailed to them and then they do it themselves?
No,
Like
no, this is an in-office procedure,
in office.
Botox
Okay.
filler, Morpheus skin tightening, the whole thing, and then weight loss is all virtual.
I've got a client that I'm working with that's trying to do the weight loss that way. That's why I was curious. Thanks for helping me.
If you want, you can give me a call. She get up afterwards. She started that way. She started mobile, and now they come in. So I can help you with that.
Cool. Gabe asked again, he said, for competitive market, what do you think is the ideal amount of post content monthly? Um, eh, it's again, it's very much so an it depends answer. I hate to give that to you, but it just depends. I mean, it depends on how much content that they currently have. So I could just speak for us. So for us with a law firm, the amount of content that we scope out or post is purely dependent on what they have when I'm auditing them during the sales process. So we do a gap analysis saying if you're a 3 location law firm, you should have a service or practice area page for every location times every practice area that you have. So personal injury has like 10 sub practice areas: car accident, truck accident, blah, blah, etc. For every location that you're in, you should have a dedicated page for that location. When we're going through the audit process, if you don't have them for 2 locations, that's 20 pages right there. And at 2,000 words each, that's 40,000 words, if my math is correct, right? So that's 40,000 words off rip. So, but again, if they come in and they have those pages, then we're probably not going to focus as much on content up front versus maybe, link building or advertising. So it just depends, Gabe. And I say that too because we're also not building as much blog content nearly as we used to, because blog content is just getting completely eaten up by AI answers. And we're doing, it's actually, somebody just posted in our team channel today about how, let me see, he posted we built some personal injury calculators for one of our clients, and it's now actually ranking. If you Google personal injury settlement calculator in his state, he's ranking first within the AI answer. So now we're like hyper tracking to see if that drives any traffic through that, which I do think that it will in this instance. But like that's also not like a huge top funnel search, which is kind of crazy, right? It's not like, like, I don't know, like what to do after a car accident. If you Googling personal injury settlement calculator, it means that you were probably injured, right? And that you're in market. So it's just, the point is that like AI is really, overviews are really starting to erode a lot of the SERP answers. I've even been seeing it for some bottom funnel searches too. It's pretty nuts. Manusha, go ahead.
I just based on what you just said,
Yes.
service pages, like having the same page,
Yes.
with just duplicated for different areas. When I was going through that section of the course, I thought I understood that you should not do that. Well, I'll ask my question better. Is it if you have a physical location in that area, or if you want to target
Yeah.
that area?
No,
I think
very,
I have a misunderstanding.
very good question. So and this does get confusing. So the old school SEO thing to do for like local businesses, especially in the attorney space, was to create, no matter how many physical locations you had, like let's say you're a lawyer in the state of Florida, you can service all of Florida, right? Because you're barred in that state. They would create pages, like service pages for like Gainesville, like every single city, without having a physical location there. That to me is one way to do it. I personally wouldn't do it that way. It's a lot of effort for not a lot of return. And Google also has this penalty that's called doorway pages. That's what those are. It's essentially a way to backdoor traffic when you don't really operate in that region. What we coach is, if you have a physical location, then yes, you should have all the services built out for that location. So if you have 5 locations and you have 5 services that you offer, right? Let's say you're a dentist, right? You have five physical office locations. You do I don't know, veneers, teeth whitening, cleaning, whatever, blah, blah, blah. For each one of those locations, you're going to want to have a dedicated service page. The reason being is because let's say you have an office in Miami, in Fort Lauderdale, right? People are going to be searching either dentist near me or dentist Fort Lauderdale, implants Fort Lauderdale, whatever it looks like, right? If you don't have that dedicated page on your website, Google doesn't have that asset to rank. So it's kind of like a mix between the two. Like, you need those pages, but I say only if you have a physical verified GBP, because then it makes sense. Then you have an actual office location that you can service people out of, versus just trying to jam the SERPs with a ton of pages that you don't actually service just to get people to the website. So it's kind of a mix between the two. Like, yes, you want to create those pages, And it's also not just like a copy paste version of it, right? Like technically it's the same page just for a different location, but you want to try and customize that page based on the location. For example, if it's a Miami car accident attorney, like versus a Jacksonville car accident, like let's say the same law firm serves Miami and Jacksonville, right? Miami has a heavy Spanish Latin influence, right? So you're probably going to want to put some Spanish on the page. You're probably going to want to put maybe some local landmarks, or, like cases one versus Jacksonville, right? You just want to speak to the differences between those cities, but the targeting of the page at a high level is going to be the same thing. It's still a page for car accident attorney, just times that location. So it's not like a copy and paste, just change the page title. It's a copy and paste, but you're going to want to edit that page to make sure it reflects that local market. But again, only if you have a very verified Google business profile in that location.
Got it. So in this situation, I'm referring to a medical spa,
Yep.
and their physical location is in an area that has kind of, there's a lot of people that aren't like, it used to be a very rich area, and because of different things that the Canadian government has done in that area, it's become very low life. So there, even though it's a very top-notch medical spa, there are they want to target like other areas around it that people would still come from. So I was thinking I wouldn't want to put that location in the permalink, like in the URL. Because I'm like, I don't really want to show up for the people that are searching for that in that area. So in this case, would I just put in a different location, like just choose one, or just leave it out?
So, I mean, it the tough thing about Google versus like a Meta, right? Meta, you can kind of change your targeting based on demographic or interest. Google is just whoever's in that area, whoever's searching in that area is going to find that content and information. So because it's a med spa, I'm assuming they have a physical location there, right? You just have to make that permalink for whatever location that they are, right? Like I mean, I guess hypothetically, if it was like Miami, for example, and Coconut Grove, for example, is a really good neighborhood versus, I don't know, like Alapata, if you wanted to do that, but like still I would make it Miami versus like, the hyper specific neighborhood, if that answers your question.
Got it. That's a good idea. Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course. Mahilo, you're up next. Go ahead, man.
Hi. So the question is, what do you do when you can't price the project based on a sprint or on a project level, but you must go on an hourly basis? What I mean by that is that I now have a potential client that already ranks in top 2 results for the very the most important query, top 3 in local pack, but their website is not optimized for conversion. So my service there would be to connect them with developers, to propose some landing page layouts for conversion rate optimization, and that would take like a couple of hours of my time. And then I know that I personally do not like charging by hour because I want to paste to the place where I want to charge by the value growth. But now this is the case. Like I will spend like 5 hours connecting the dots and charge like my hourly rate for that. So what do you do in that case?
I don't think you're gonna like my advice, but I would run from that. I personally wouldn't take that on. I mean, we're at different stages. If you feel like, they're paying you a good rate and you want to take it, that's fine. But like, I would never do hourly work because you're an employee. You know, that's my opinion. Now, granted, like there was a time in my career when I did hourly work because I needed money and I wanted to make money. So if you feel like it's easy work for you, you can charge 5 and only do 1, do it. But like I'm never going to advise anybody in this program to charge hourly because you're essentially becoming an employee of that company. So the other option, right, is to just do project based work, right? Where you're charging, for example, if you're saying it's going to take 5 hours of dev time, just charge for the page. Say it's $1,500 a page or whatever it is for a page. Because whenever it's more of like the precedent that you're setting by charging per hour, because then they're going to say, hey, you did a great job. Can we buy 3 more hours of your time or 2 more hours? You're always going to be pigeonholed to that and under quoted versus kind of adding the value into what you're doing and that's the thing too. Like it's maybe the developer's mindset or the designer's mindset versus the marketer's mindset, which is you're here to make the money. And if you're building a landing page, it's going to make the money, right? So like, don't charge by the hour, charge based on the value of what you're doing and the projected value of what you're going to drive to. That doesn't mean charge $100,000 for it, but you set a precedent, and that way you can also hire other people. So if you're going to say it's $1,500 a page, then you can take 700 of that and go pay somebody else to do it for you. You pocket $800 or whatever that is, that would just be my advice, but again, like, if you need quick money and it's easy work, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. But my recommendation for you and everyone here will never be to charge by the hour, because I want you to build a business. I don't want you to take a job, Of
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
course.
We'll consider that.
Of course. Benji, go for it, man. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Ryan?
Good, man.
Yeah, so I was just hoping you could walk me through the conversation that you have with the managing partner of firms or your point of contact about what converts call tracking when you're not doing paid ads. So you're just doing, the GBP stuff and the on-site SEO stuff. I'm just having a client that like agreed to it initially. We implemented it. I'm trying to get them on the phone for onboarding with like me and my contact at What Converts. But the attorney is like basically deposing me over email about why it's necessary.
Yeah. So, and also too, with attorneys, they're like, oh, my number is proprietary. Like people like, attorneys hate seeing their number changed. They swear it's like a key part of their brand. I'm like, dude, just because you got a cute number, nobody's remembering that. Trust me. Obviously there's a way to say that to them and there's a way not to say that to them. Okay. So first and foremost, like if you're just doing organic, you don't have to do it. And this could just be a learning lesson for you. Like, to me, the number tracking, because it only happens on the website, right? Like you're not going to put the What Converts or call rail inside their GBP profile. You don't have to, because GBP does such a good job of tracking phone calls. We know that they're coming from there, right? It's really only for, yeah.
I had thought that only captures clicks to call.
No. Well, clicks to call, yes, right? So, but okay, so let me break this down, right? So like the GBP platform does an amazing job of tracking calls, right? If you go to the analytics, you see impressions, clicks, directions, reviews, calls from the profile, right? So from within the SERPs. So you don't have to change, you can just leave the phone number there as is, because GBP is going to track that phone call from the SERPs, right? Now, if somebody clicks to the website, right, and you don't have What Converts or call rail on the website, then you're not going to see where that call came from, if it came from GBP, right? Or if it came from organic or email. Like the website can become a bit of a black box. It will track overall phone calls or conversions, but you're not going to know the source of it per se, right? So that's why call rail or What Converts is so important, because you put a tracking number on the website, and whoever calls that number, we know exactly where it came from, right? And there's levels of organic that it can come from. And so what I would say to them is I would say, look, we don't have to do it. Like if this is something that you don't want to do, I apologize. We do this for all of our clients. I can show you what the reporting looks like if you're doing it otherwise, so they can kind of get a sense for it. But if they're pushing back on it, like you don't have to do it. It's kind of like their loss is kind of how I would frame it, because what
Okay.
they need to understand, I don't know what they're doing for marketing or advertising, but like we see this a lot for our clients that are doing like billboard advertising and stuff, right? Like there's going to be a lot of traffic coming to the website that, like we're going to want to track and understanding how it's getting there and where it's coming from. So we can decide, like if you're spending 100 grand a month, like you don't want to know where your phone calls are coming from. If you don't, fine, that makes your job easier, so like I would just kind of present it like, hey, this is a benefit to you. This is so we can track granular. If you want to see where every single phone call is coming from or form submissions coming from on the website, the software is going to help you do it. It also tracks phone calls too. So, you record them and you can listen to them, like we do it a lot with our clients, is do like a spot audit of their intake and be like, yo, like you're like, you didn't pick up half these calls, or like if you want us to report on leads, what we'll also do is we'll report on phone calls over 3 minutes, right? If the phone call is
Right.
3 minutes,
And that's exactly what I'm afraid of. I really dug my heels in on this, and I was about to say what you're recommending, where it's like, hey, this is for your benefit. So if you don't want it, let's not do it. But I didn't want to like 12 months to pass and then they want the data, they don't have it. And it's like, well, I told you so.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
as long as I say this a lot, right? Like so much of what we do is about managing expectations. And like as long as it's documented that you said that, you can hold them accountable for it. So it's important that you're going through this, and it's fine that he's pushing back, but you just be like, make sure it's an email too, to be like,
yeah.
for your own benefit, like we don't have to do it. It's gonna make you less accountable in a sense if we don't do it. So if they don't want to do it, and we have clients that say no all the time because they're like, we don't want to change the number. I'm like, okay, fine. But like that's your call. I just want you to.
Okay. See, I thought maybe I think I misinterpreted something you said on a former webinar, where I thought that you wouldn't take on a client if they wouldn't do it.
Hmm. No, I mean, if I said that I was wrong, I mean that would be stupid on my part, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
thought that was a little harsh, but
yeah, no, I mean, look, there's certain things that I wouldn't take on a client on. I just was going back and forth with a client a prospect over email who was like, I don't know, I don't like to repeat myself over, and I found myself saying the same thing over and over and over to him. And I was like, I already know where this working relationship is going to go. I'm just going to cut this off here. There's certain things that I see red flags ahead of time, but something like that, it's like, you're only hurting yourself. Like you're actually making it easier for me by not having this level of tracking, because now I can claim things that are not mine, and I can just take that up into the right graph and run
yeah.
it. So by all means. Of
Okay. Thanks, Ryan.
course. Steve, go ahead, man.
Hey, how's it going? I've been enjoying the training so far. Just joined over the holidays, so I'm about a week into this thing. But my question, and as I joined the call, this is sort of the topic that I think Minutia was going over a little bit too. Was I've got a lot of clients here that are, got 2 or 3 people working for them. They're plumbers, contractors of some kind, HVAC. They're not just by themselves, but they don't have an office. And I know that's not traditional local SEO, but I have been looking at this concept of building these landing pages because I'm in Greenville, Spartanburg. I was in Atlanta for 30 years. I've been up here. This is kind of I'm in back home near my folks and on a farm. And Greenville, Spartanburg is a big geographic area, but it's not a big metropolitan area. So it's nothing like Atlanta. If you could get ranked within 20 miles of your location in Atlanta, you'd have more than you could do, right? So dense. It's not like that up here. So a lot of these guys, I've been thinking about the concept for someone who doesn't have an office. And I know one option is to, hey, get an office and let's get you, verified there. But is that more valid if they don't have an office to create these landing pages? Because there's a lot of communities in Greenville, Spartanburg that everybody wants to get ranked in Greenville or Spartanburg.
Yeah.
It's really competitive, but Duncan, Greer, Boiling Springs, all these little Inman, that's where a lot of the searches come from. So is that a valid way to do it if they don't have an office?
So like one, if they don't have an office, they should get their home address verified, right? Like they should have something verified.
Okay.
And I'm just going to show you why. So what would be,
because even if they don't expose it on Google, that's still where they're based, right?
that's where they're based. But I'm just going to show you something real quick. I'm going to share my screen. Give me a location plus service that. So you said Greenville, right? Like Greenville, Alabama.
Greenville, South Carolina.
Greenville, SC. What is the service?
Let's say a good example, junk removal. This is the guy I'm working with.
Okay. So these 2 results here, you see this? The first thing that shows up, if you want to show up here, these are ads, but you need a Google Business Profile verified, right?
Yeah.
So like you want to show up at the very, very top of SERPs, you need a Google Business Profile. Okay. These are going to be traditional PPC ads. The next thing we see here though are Google Business Profiles, right? So like literally 1, 2, 3 scrolls, right? And on mobile, it's even further. Nobody's scrolling past 3 scrolls to get there, right? So like to your point, you could definitely create location pages, right? I know I talked about this with Minutia that it's a little bit spammy. It's a little bit spammy, but it's fine if you can do it. I'm not telling you explicitly not to do it. It's just a lot of effort and work and a lot of content to create, right?
Right. So in this case, I get the Greenville part, but if it was Boiling Springs, South Carolina, right? It's a smaller community that could, people could be doing near me from there,
I mean, same thing, right? And near me is going to trigger the same results. So same thing. You see GBPs verified, scroll down, GBPs here. So it's a little bit out of order here in a sense. But I mean, still the point being is that
It's not
the
as crowded, right? But
it's not as crowded. It's still crowded. They're still here. And again, too, on mobile, I guarantee you that this maps pack is going to show higher than it is. I just know that for a fact. And again, even more so, right? So if we say you're going to create, very specific landing pages, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you not to do it. It's not that you can't get them to rank. You can get them to rank. It's more about is the result of that effort going to result in phone calls and signed clients for your client, right? That's
yeah,
so like what I teach and coach here is keeping the main thing, which is making your clients money. A much faster way to make them money would be to get them verified for GBP and optimize them to rank here, because this is going to drive so many more phone calls and so many more clients. And then also turning on these local service ads, you can spend 500 to $1,000 and drive an additional 20 phone calls a month for them, right? Versus
yeah,
how much time and effort is it going to take you to build out 50 different landing pages? How much is that going to cost you? The effort only to show up at the bottom of the page that people don't really click on. If you're a
yeah,
searcher, right, looking for junk removal, let's go back to this one because it supports my case a little bit better, right? You're gonna if you don't call one of these two, if you don't click and call one of these two, you're gonna call one of these. Because what you
yeah,
don't want to do is you don't want to have to click on individual websites and go through each one of these. I mean, maybe if you're 80 years old, maybe you're going to do that, but like that's just not the way that behavior works anymore online. Like
yeah,
people are pretty lazy. And what's so great about this too is that if you click on this, right, it's basically like websites within Google, right? You have everything that you need here as a searcher to make your decision. You have reviews, you have pictures, you have proximity on the map. That's very important, right? Like you're
right.
able to compare and contrast all these different options very quickly and very easily and very fast here too. So
Yeah.
so like, again, I'm not going to tell you not to do it if you've got a
No,
good.
I just want to get, because I mean, I think you made it pretty simple here. Even if you get them to rank their website to rank the highest of any website, it's still going to come up under local service ads and the 3 map,
Very
and
low.
which is going to be below the
Yep.
point where anybody searches for it, right?
Very low visibility. So what's going to happen, I see it all the time, and I get in, bickering matches with SEOs all the time, is that you're going to be able to show them a graph from Ahrefs or SEMrush that says, hey, look at your keyword rankings. But after a while, your client's going to be like, that's great, but like, where are my phone calls? Because they don't correlate anymore, right? And this is like a core part of this program, right? Is keeping you guys abreast with what's actually happening. And running an agency business is not about keyword rankings. It's about making your clients money.
Sure. Yeah. But so like if I've got a say a 60-mile radius that these plumbers, electricians, and HVAC people are covering, and let's say they do have an office and it's out in Boiling Springs, but they want to be able to get down to Greenville, which is another 45 minutes away or so. Can you get ranked that much of a radius? I always have heard coming in here that 20 miles is about it.
I wouldn't even say, I mean, maybe in, Boiling Springs, South Carolina. I'm not too familiar with it. Sounds like there's probably a lot of woods out there. So like maybe you can increase that ranking radius there, but like for the most part, it's going to be 5 miles or less. So now listen, what you can do, because right in this instance, you might say, well, look at I can only get them verified once, and it's going to be a home address, let alone 2 or 3 to cover that 60-mile radius. That's where advertising is so impactful, right? So like local service ads, we've got a training inside of school that's up.
Yeah, they're definitely doing that. Yeah, we got them doing that.
So that's how you can geo-target that 60-mile radius, right? So like you're covering that whole map, and then over time, as you show them success, you can be like, hey, look you're paying $50 a phone call from LSAs, you're spending 10 grand a month. I found some commercial space out in Boiling Springs. It's going to cost you $150 a month.
Right.
And based on your other verified GBP, you're getting 25 phone calls a month. That's 25 times 50, right? You can do the math on what the value that is. Why don't we put that in Boiling Springs? It's a business conversation that you can have with them over time, right? But the first step is figuring out how to get them the phone calls. So again, that's like getting something verified is going to be the first step.
So local service ads can cover as broad a range as 60 miles or whatever. It's not like SEO. I wasn't sure about that. Okay, cool. That's great.
Of course. Davitt, I got an 8 minutes hard stop coming up, so we'll just kind of I apologize to cut this off, but we'll go as quickly as possible through the next three. Go ahead, Davitt.
Yeah. Hello, guys. I'm new here.
Well,
I have a quick question about sales. I'm working in a local market in Georgia, and here I'm using cold calling. And here we have a directory with business listings where there are numbers of marketing managers, CEOs, founders, and etc. I just wanna get a suggestion if you can suggest me something for something like that for calling for European market where I can find a good listing of business with their marketing managers or CEOs or founders contact information. It's like broad question and it's about European
yeah. So
market,
one,
but
I
anyway.
don't know the European market too well. I apologize. Because our clients are basically have to be US based as law firms. But I will say this, like I'm not bullish on cold calling at all. So it's not something that I've done in a very long time. And some people can get it to work for them, right? If you're very good at it and you got a good script and a good process, I'm not saying it doesn't work. But in terms of what I would recommend or teach or be able to teach you on how to do, like it's not something I have any experience with. I'm a marketer, man. Like I believe in marketing. Cold calling is a sales, it falls under sales, not marketing per se. Do you know what I mean? Um, so look, like I'll just tell you what I do instead, right? Instead of like finding a list of people that have no idea who you are or haven't shown any interest, I like to build that list, right? The way that you build that list is by creating something of value that you can put in front of them that they will then give their information for in exchange for, right? So that can be done on LinkedIn, that can be done with Facebook ads, which is what we use, that can be done on YouTube, and that's kind of like the core of marketing, right? Is to get permission to contact those people. So that's really what I fall into. Again, cold calling. Anytime somebody cold calls me, man, you're not going to get you're not going to get my time in it. I'm usually not excited about cold calls personally. So I always put myself in the shoes of, my customers. And if I'm not excited about it, then it's not something I really do.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry that wasn't helpful, man. But if you want to talk marketing, man, we can help you with marketing. Tim, go ahead, brother. Thanks for waiting.
All right, guys. So, I mean, real quick, I know we're short on time. My business is like a whole mess of different types of clients at this point that I've accumulated over the last 2 years. Kind of building it slow and learning. And I'm pretty dense with technology and processes. I'm still trying to put things together. I got a friend of mine that he's gotten pretty good at this method of using Facebook to get pre-qualified leads for personal injury attorneys. And so they have to answer 7 questions correctly before they're ever transferred, and then they have a 4-minute buffer before they're considered billable or a credit off of what they paid. So there's like an initial sales process of just discussing that with them, and then there's the basically it comes out to like a trial number. So it's like 15 leads or something like that. He said that, through this group that he's paid into and, through their experience, that's a 25% conversion rate. So they'll get 1 out of 4. So it's costing them $2,000 to get a personal injury case on average.
Pretty good.
And then that is pretty good considering what LSA can whack them for $500, and it's not even the right kind of law, and they can't even claw it back and get a refund anymore. And so I'm almost tempted, like I've got a couple of meetings pending, and I've got a proposal the guy said yes to. I just have to collect his credit card because he's, just blowing me off. Is that like a better offer to lead in with than like basically bringing the SEO behind that? Because it's basically more of a straightforward offer where they can say yes or no, and the results are going to be pretty quick, and they'll know pretty quickly whether or not we've.
You have the means to drive $500 leads essentially at $2,000 sign cases, or you have to
Yeah.
do that. So you do.
I do. It just has to be, I mean, they have to have a big enough territory for it to work. Like if they're covering the state of California or a tri-state area or something like that, we can do calls. If not, we have to resort to quote forms, which is a lower conversion rate at like 15%, but the price is lower too. They're still qualified. They still have to answer enough questions. And we have the ability to credit like up to a certain number. If they have a duplicate lead, like one came from their efforts and we can credit up to 5 per 30. Is this something you've seen done? Okay.
I see it on my feed all the time. So I mean, it's basically lead generation. So like, I'm assuming you're using Facebook ads to drive the leads too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a pro and cons list, right? That you have to work out. And you can do both too, right? But like to be frank, like we're trying to move a little bit more to that model because we're rolling out Facebook ads for our clients. And what we're seeing is that if we can get them to work, then they're dramatically profitable on the cost per. They're getting leads off Facebook for like $200 when we got them dialed in for personal injury. That's like nuts, right? I mean, granted, the conversion rate, yours is probably a little bit better because you're, I'm assuming, handling part of the intake process for them, depending on the
Well, that
client.
part's automated, but yeah, it's about 200 cost. You're correct, but then we're reselling that for 500. So it's a $300 rip, which is awesome. Like if I can scale with that and get a handful of guys, I mean, I don't even need to build a whole SEO thing.
Yeah.
Like
No,
you know what I mean? Like
I agree. So like the pros and cons are this, right? One pros for you is that it's much easier for you to sell. And I know I just kind of dumped on David for cold calling, but that would be a cold calling offer that you can take to the bank, right? Or cold email offer, right? Because if you're like cold calling, cold email really only works when you're able to put some sort of guarantee or stamp on it, right? Which is, I'm going to help you get to what you care about the most, sign cases, and I can pretty much guarantee that it's going to be at $2,000 or less. And then you just put some like dependings on there in terms of like blah, blah, whatever, right? So it's going to be very easy for you to sell and build that customer base. Two, it's much easier for you to manage those clients because you don't have to deal with like project planning and all that other bullshit. You're just going straight for the jugular, right? So that's where that's really good. Now, those are two very, very big, very big pros. The big cons of that are one, or scale, right? Like how far can you, like if you, like, I don't know what your experience is scaling Facebook ad accounts, but can you scale that into millions per month as you build this, list, right? That's an unknown, or maybe you know that already. Two is um like the creative fatigue that you might find on Facebook. Because I think, as you know, with this, like when we work with our Facebook ad clients, it helps us out tremendously because we're putting the onus of creative back on them. We're getting videos from the attorney based on scripts that we're providing. Very straightforward. Three, the way that because I pitch against lead gen firms all the time, all the time. And my biggest thing that I tell them is that one of the biggest benefits, I'm a walking proof example that one of the biggest benefits of Facebook advertising is the brand that comes off the back of it, not just the direct response, right? So you're providing the direct response, which is what they care about in the short term. But man, the long-term benefit of spending $50,000, $100,000 a month on Facebook ads over a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 year period is far more impactful than anything else that you could do from a marketing point of view, my opinion, right? So like when I pitch, that's obviously not something that you would bring up and something that they don't even know about. But when I pitch against lead generation firms, which again happens all the time, because one of the biggest rebuttals I get when I'm pitching a PI firm is they're like, well, I'm working with a lead gen firm. They're providing me signed cases for $3,000. Can you beat that? And I tell them, I'm like, look, that's great, but that's a short term, that's putting a band-aid on a gushing wound here, right? Because you're not getting the brand equity from it. You're not getting the scale from it too. Like you're going to win long run in today's market through brand, because with AI coming, it's eroding all the shit. And like what's going to be left is essentially brand, right? So that's kind of my big pitch. Whether or not that's true or not is for other things, but that's one of my pitches. But again,
Well,
with that,
it may be easier to say to them that like, hey, if you went fishing, would you rather have one fishing line or two?
yes,
I mean, and that's the thing is like, it's not, why does it have to be either or? Like you could be kicking ass doing their SEO for them, charging what you charge, delivering great value. And I could be over here, and you could be running Facebook ads over here and driving brand value, but they could also be buying leads from somebody else who's driving some generic leads over that are also cost effective. So to me, it's kind of like, everybody can eat at the same time with like that type of model.
yep, no, 100%. It's not like, one of the beautiful things about this industry too is that they are not going to put a cap on how many leads that they're willing to pay for, whether it's through marketing, advertising lead. They're not going to cap that at all. So it's not necessarily competing against each other. And most of our clients do buy leads, right? They have mixed success with it, to be honest with you. Some lead gen companies are far superior than others. But I mean, you're totally right. But if you were to, like, the question was if you were going to start basically offering SEO in conjunction with what you're doing as well, right? If I were you, I probably wouldn't. I would focus on scaling what you're doing because it's going to be a much easier sell. It's just about how far can you push that? because you're also eating all the costs up front too. When you scale this to 50, 100 clients, your ad spend bill is going to be.
Oh, they have to pay up front for each batch. So that's the other good part about it is we're never out of pocket. We're not, you know, I mean, the bad thing about it is it's not like some of the other stuff I've done with like digital landlords where you're kind of like the digital drug dealer. You develop a few leads for free because they're cheap enough for you to grab them, and then you give it to them for free with that free offer. Rather than that, unfortunately, it has to be you pay this amount up front. You know, $10,000 gets you 20 leads, and then you can decide if you want to buy more. If you don't, you don't. But if you do, awesome, because it sticks, and then it's super simple for me because he does the fulfillment and I go sell another deal.
Yep.
Which is what I want. I want to get to my financial goals as fast as I possibly can and leave all the minutia behind.
No, I would stick with that. I mean, it's especially in the personal injury space, like these guys don't really want to get involved with any of the marketing. So they don't really care how the sausage is made as long as it tastes good, you know, like they really do not care. So if you can provide the level of scale, then I would say stick with what you're doing. That doesn't mean that you can't do SEO or something in the future, or even manage Facebook ads at a 10, 20, because the other option too would be to say, I maybe just do the cost analysis internally to say, am I undercharging for what we're doing now? If I was to do percentage of ad spend, right? If you were to take a 15, 20% of ad spend clip, knowing already, you already know the hard part, you've got the math done, like, you know what a cost per signed case is. So you can squeeze more juice out of that potentially by doing percentage of ad spend, right? You know, we have some clients that are spending 100 grand a month on Facebook ads at 20%, that's 20 grand, you know? So that's like, I wouldn't lean into SEO if I were you though, personally.
When I say that, I mean, like if I even thought about like partnering, like you guys have a white label offer or something like that, or bringing in another partner who, you know, already has a legal SEO team built out, and you guys can pay me a piece of it or whatever it is, because then I get both. I get to double dip, and all I'm doing is sales, which is really where I want to be. Because I couldn't hate this tech stuff anymore. I hate it so much. As a sales guy, I'm just like, I'm so sick of like being stuck on how does this work and how does that work rather than like making money.
Yep. 100%.
Thanks for the answer.
Anytime. All right, people, I do have to jump. As always, I appreciate your time, appreciate your attention, appreciate your business.